Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Woman to Woman TV show. I'm your host, Wanda Carter. And this evening, we're going to be talking to Dr. Mangum. And we have some reporters on the line. We have Mr. Lionel Nixon, we have Mr. Brian Vickers, and we have Miss Lavette Haynes. And Brian, I'd like for you to take the ball and introduce our guest.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Brian Vickers, and tonight we have a guest, the author of Life Changing Journeys, Sharon Mangum. Okay, if I may ask, what inspired you? This is something I'd like to know. What inspired you to write this book, Life Changing Journeys, Tales from the Windy City?
It's actually started out as more of a hobby. I wasn't looking to write a book. And what I started doing was after I would get off from work sometimes, the job was kind of stressful and I would usually come home and either read a book or look at TV. But this particular evening, some different plots and sort of like subplots that I imagined hadn't been written started going through my mind. And I thought, well, why doesn't someone write a book like this? Or why haven't I seen, this kind of story? And I thought, well, it doesn't mean it hasn't been done, but I can certainly try. And I found myself, taking notes. And as I started developing characters and getting more involved in what I thought might be interesting, it became more entertainment for me as opposed to my thinking that I was going to actually write a book. And, people will say that they don't know how a book is going to turn out. And I would hear that and I used to say, now you're not going to tell me that you're going to sit there and write something and you don't know how it's going to turn out. That's actually true because as you develop a plot and characters, they actually start to evolve and dictate to you what they're going to do next or how they would act. And so as I did that, I started to see it more of a short story, one short story. And over time, I put it down. And when I came back to complete it, I couldn't find it. It was like a year later, I couldn't find it. And this was back when they had floppies, right?
Yeah.
I couldn't find them. So that tells you how long ago it was. I couldn't find the floppies. And I had a paper file that I had put in a manila folder. And I went back to that.
Okay.
And it wasn't in there. And I thought, that is so odd. So when I had to clean out my my library in order to work from there, I pulled that same manila folder. And guess what?
It was in there.
It was in there. So that said to me that when I wanted to complete the story, it must not have been the right time. Otherwise, I would have found it. And so that sort of reinforced to me that this is a story that I am meant to tell. And it was meant to be told at this time and not when I wanted to complete it.
Oh, she makes it sound so logical. You know what, Sharon? When my husband passed, I said I was going to write a book. I started the book. I wrote a few chapters. I with it. And I'm thinking when I decided I was going to go back and do it, I couldn't find it either. That's why you see.
So maybe that's a way of the spirit telling us that your time frame isn't my time frame.
Yeah.
And what you want to do now hasn't meant to be revealed right now,
Okay. I like that.
And, after I found that story and completed it, other stories started coming to me. I mean, it was like I would wake up in the middle of the night with an idea for a story.
Oh, really?
Exactly. About, subjects that I had no knowledge of. And Brian, you've read the book.
Yeah.
And so some of those stories you're going to say, well, have you ever been a chef or have you ever worked at a restaurant? I've not done any of those things, but the spirit revealed to me that those were subjects that I had a calling to write about for whatever reason. And even now, that reason may not have been fully revealed. So.
All right. Oh, The doctor, I hear it in her
Ah,
voice.
You see me.
Right. The back. Help. Uh,
Oh, good
Oh,
evening, Dr. Mangum. I
hi.
wanted to know what your title, how do you relate your doctorship with writing this book?
Well, when I wrote it initially, even though the first story is about doctors, you don't necessarily have to be technically inclined to understand the humanity of the characters or to know a lot about science, because it's meant to be broken down to a level such that even if you have no background in science, you can read it. So when I was writing it, I didn't necessarily relate my profession to the book itself. I wanted something that was a human interaction between the characters and whoever was reading it, such that they could relate. You know,
okay.
there are people that are in age from 16 to 80 years old in the book. And even though everyone hasn't gotten to the age of 80 yet, certainly they can probably relate to the fact that we're all mortal and
Yes.
we're all going to pass away. And this particular individual, without giving away the plot of the story, is faced with his mortality and
Okay.
what kind of legacy he is going to face in the afterlife. So, you know, not to be too long winded about it, I didn't relate my being a doctor too much to writing the book, even though three or four of the characters in the book are doctors, and one character actually starts out in medical school, but he doesn't finish because he realizes it isn't his calling. So,
Okay. Oh,
So,
girl.
so have you been to any book signings with
no,
your book?
not yet. What's in the planning stages is that Barnes and Noble is going to do a trial with my book, and they've invited me to come when the book arrives and sign copies so that they can say that this is a book that's been signed by the author. They told me they used to have a program where you could come in and sign 10 or 20 of your books and they would order them outright. But for some reason, they're not doing that now. So there will be books that I have signed at Barnes and Noble. They're going to let me know when they arrive so I can sign them. But I'm encouraging people that if they call, even though the book may not be there, it will let Barnes and Noble know that there is a level of interest in the book. So that helps
Sure.
too. You know, if they call and say, well, has this book arrived? And, you know, the BNN people, even if they say no, they'll know that there's a buzz about the book. And they'll think, well, you know, we only ordered X number of copies as a trial, but it sounds as if there is a certain level of interest to the point where maybe we should be ordering more of these.
Is
Okay.
So,
that a particular Barnes and Noble?
yes, it's in Orland Park.
Right. And I think I just want to say that the COVID, the pandemic had a little bit to do with how they go about doing book signings.
Sure.
And so, but we see that as changing in the near future because this pandemic is eventually going to go away and they'll go
Yes,
back to doing business the way they normally do.
Right.
yes, we will be hopeful right along with you, George.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Like,
And
my
Doctor,
question
if
is,
anyone doesn't have any other, Doctor, I did look your name up. You know, Google tells you a few things. And
Mhm.
are you the Dr. Sharon Mangum in geriatrics?
Right. I have a subspecialty in geriatric medicine. My primary expertise was internal medicine, but yes.
Because when did you know Dr. Weiner at UIC?
Dr. Weiner.
Weiner, right? at
Dr.
UIC.
Now that name sounds really familiar, Dr.
He was
Warren.
he was the director of in general internal medicine at UIC. I was his transcriptionist while
Now, I went to medical school at University of Illinois. So, but yeah, that
in
name
Urbana or Chicago?
in Chicago.
Okay, all right. Did you know Dr. Sheldon Caesar?
No, what year was the doctor there?
It was a while ago, but we won't dwell on that. He has a practice right down the street in Chicago from Soul Vegetarian Restaurant. It's called KMT. He's a general internal medicine doctor as well, and he graduated from UIC. And his practice is that well, he sends people, his patients, down to his health food store. And so that's that he's become a holistic doctor. But I was very interested also in the fact that you are geriatrics, because I also was a transcriptionist for the geriatric department at University of Illinois. And I know that profession is definitely so necessary in the narrative that we're going through. So we're going to pick your brain at some other point because it is just, I am honored to be talking to you, first in the capacity of your book, because, and that's why I asked the question about, was there any influence, or particularly in the medical field? And I see that there was a little influence with your characters. And then the fact that this gentleman that you described is experiencing, coming to that close of life, and it does make you wonder about it the older you get. It's like I turned 65 and everything has become like the knees crack, and I thought I was a perpetual 17 and it's telling me a little different. And so I just, like I said, I'm honored to be in your presence, because it's so many unknowns to that particular area of medicine. And so
very kind. And the population is aging. You know, there are more people over 65 now than there probably were, like, many years ago, like 20 years ago. We certainly need to address the aging issues, because we have a society that unfortunately is geared more toward the young.
That's right.
And other civilizations tend to honor their aged and honor that wisdom and knowledge. And we have a tendency not to do that. And that's unfortunate, because a lot of wisdom is lost when you negate the health and well-being of your older population.
And I think that that's contributed to so many young people not even having grandparents. And that's really such a tragedy. I was fortunate to be dropped off at my grandparents' house every morning, because I graduated from Austin High School, and my high school was only a half a block from my grandparents' house. So I got a chance to just interact with them every single day and appreciate what grandparenthood is. And see, when you are a grandparent, you get a chance to really manipulate the mind of the child.
That's right. And they get a chance to manipulate yours too.
Oh, absolutely. Because, just one incident, right? I was like the only grandchild out of 50 grandchildren that they saw every day. And so my grandfather would say stuff like, "Hey, baby, you didn't came in, get the broom and sweep." I don't know why he called my grandmother little sister, but he said, get the broom and sweep for little sister, sweep for your grandma. And I'd get the broom and I'd start sweeping. And then he would make such a grand issue out of it. And he would say, "Look at a little sister, look at her sweep." And the next thing I know, I've swept the kitchen, the living room, the dining room, the hallway, the bedrooms, the hallway. And then he would say, and he would sit right in that rocking chair, and he would say, "Now go on down the stairs, baby." And the next thing I know, I had a pile of trash all the way at the front door downstairs. I said, how did this happen? So that is a tragedy for our children not to have that, and I think there should probably be programs like Grandparents Day. If you don't have a grandparent, then come over here. Some old people want to talk to you. So we can do something like that.
I think cousin Wanda can attest to that, because we both grew up under our grand.
Absolutely.
Lulu, her name was Lulu, and she was just a darling.
Yes,
and she still is in my heart.
Yeah.
And she is often thought about, and you never forget. You never forget. I don't care how old you. I just had a birthday yesterday. And
happy belated birthday!
Oh, thank you.
Happy birthday!
The big 6'5". I know what Miss Haynes is talking about when she talks about the creaking bones and stuff like that. But
can you imagine? I'm going up the stairs today because I live on the lower level, the ground level. Now you have to come up 5 stairs to get to the first floor. I was coming up them stairs with my little roller baby, and my grandbaby say, "Grandma, you want me to help you?"
And he's what, how old, Wanda?
I said, "Why you need to help me?" He said, "Because you can't even walk up the stairs." 4-year-old. Boy, going up them stairs. I'm walking up these stairs. He was gone. Yes, grandmothers. Oh boy, I have so many memories of grandma. So many memories. So many. So yes, Sharon, you work in an area that is close to my heart, because I am a geriatric, and I love it though. I love it.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
I love getting my discounts at the food stores. I love everybody saying, "Open the door for mama." Move out the way.
Well, I enjoyed it too. Now, I've been out of clinical practice now for about 4 years, and so I do more review of other clinicians, requests for orders and things of that nature. But you're right, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I remember the oldest patient I had was, I think, 107 years old.
Whoa!
She didn't look a day over 80.
For real?
And she it was amazing. And I'm trying to remember, because I used to work in the South in Atlanta. So I think she was a patient that I had in the South, but she was very astute. She was still cognitively intact. She was a little slow, but if you didn't know her age, you wouldn't have
known. Yeah.
No.
Oh, wow.
Now, Doctor, I'd like to ask you another question about your book. How many chapters is the book? I mean, how many short stories is there?
There are 7, and each short story constitutes a chapter. Now, when you say 7, it might sound like, well, that's a very brief book, but actually it's like 250. Let me get to it. I believe it's like 250 or 240 pages. So you actually get quite a bit reading in, even though, it's only 7 stories. So
What's your favorite story?
I have 2.
Okay. Well, and what 2 are they?
Okay. The first one that I started out writing as a hobby was Dr. Hambrick's Revenge. That's the very first story. And I like that one. I love that one. Actually, I have 3. And I like Heaven's Gate because it addresses the fact that even though people might know in their heart that because they've confessed a relationship with Jesus Christ that they're going to heaven, this guy actually has to think about the fact that once he gets there, and I'm not trying to give away too much of the plot, that there might be echelons. There may not just be, oh, I'm here, so I've made it. So, oh, and the third one I like is The Fabulous Frederico.
Oh.
So now I don't know if anyone has gotten that far in the book, because I think that's further along. That might be more the latter half of the book. So,
Okay.
but
Okay.
but
Well,
yeah, Dr.
I'll have to
Van,
get a copy. And so, do you have copies where you would? Now, are you in the Chicago area?
oh, okay. I'm on. There are two ways to get the book. We already talked about the Barnes and Noble location in Orland Park, and then online at Amazon.com.
And I ordered. She sent me a copy, but I ordered a copy. That's why
Oh, I
Brian
love
has a
it.
copy.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I really
Okay.
hope you do get it and read it, because I enjoyed, even after I had written it and they had edited the what I thought was the final copy, because you still have to go back and make corrections and things. I would have to stop myself from going back and reading it all over again, because I was thinking, I'm just supposed to be correcting the errors, and I'm sitting here reading the whole story again, just like I'd never heard.
Oh.
And
That's part of that's part of the perfectionist in you.
Yes, it is. It is.
And I thank you for that, but I also want to say I found myself being entertained by my own writing, and I'm like, well, that's
yes. If you don't toot your own horn, who will?
And you know what? That's where I come in, because my wife is very modest, and
yes. So you taught her some things.
Not only is she an author, but she's also a painter. And
What?
Oh my God!
One of her works.
Oh, Levette, that's right up your alley, Levette. She is culturally bound.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah. I have okay. I am a jewelry fabricator for 44 years. And my children's father, who was my ex-husband, he passed away, but he became a painter. And what we were able to do is remain business partners, because he was the master jewelry crafter. And so we remained business partners after the split. And that was like 40, about 34 years ago. And so we remained friends. We, had 3 children. And but he became a master painter. He was a master at everything he touched, from being a interior designer, master jewelry crafter, cook, everything. He was a master. And so what he did before he passed away, he gave me all of his work. And it is just amazing to see a self-taught, because he was self-taught in everything. And so I would love one day to view your artwork. I don't know if you know a artist. Her name is Shirley Hudson. But Shirley Hudson also was a painter who passed away a year ago, almost a year ago. And I know she passed away with at least about 1,000 pieces of artwork. Wow. And I was fortunate to stalk her for one piece for years. I just kept saying, I can't afford 5. I can't. It was like $1,200. And I said, I want that so bad, but I can't afford $1,200. So every time she would go to a gallery opening, she would say, oh, well, Yvette, I took the self-portrait, but it didn't sell. And I was like, yes. And so it was like maybe 10 years later. And one day I said, what's the least you'd sell that to me for? And she said, $400. I still didn't have it. I said, well, can I give you a down payment? Because this is painful. Every time you go to a gallery show and I have to hold my breath until you get back. So we did, and I paid for it. And now I have a small gallery in Garfield Park. And I got that. And so I was just so, and it was a self-portrait of herself. And it really, it was a self-portrait, but you couldn't tell it was Shirley, but that was her emotions in the picture. And then some of my friends, when I go to their house, her pieces are on their wall. And so it really matters that we as Black people buy art from each other, and preserve the history of not only your artistry as a literary artist, but as a visual artist, and Wanda as a film director, and Brian as a photographer. It is important that we capture these things historically, where we're telling each other's story, and that's how we do know about Langston Hughes and all of the other artists that came, because it was important to capture and present that narrative to the public. And that's what is not happening right now. It's like Black culture is dying because it's not being preserved. And it's tragedy.
Well, I would
I'm
like
sorry.
to make sure that I get the address to your art gallery and get information on the photography that Brian's doing and everybody else, so we can use those as resources. So when we need those services, or when we want to buy a piece of art, or when we want to have a certain photograph taken, we have people who we can say, we know that they are of like mind and like culture, and so we can patronize you.
That makes so much
Yeah,
sense.
And
That
you know
was so
what?
much.
Also, because I've forgotten that cousin Wanda is a film person, but as I read the book, I was convinced that this book needs to be on the silver screen.
See that?
Oh,
We
yes.
because we might have to hook up and
Hey,
Yes,
let's
yes.
do it.
Now
I'd like
listen,
to do a film. Let's do it. That'll
when
be
I
great.
saw when
so
I
when
saw
you read
George's
when you
name,
read the
I
book,
thought that you were George Owens, who should be on this show tonight. But
Yes, we should have had George on this show.
he is his company is called Global Unity, Global City
City
Unity.
Unity.
And George just announced yesterday that after 30 years, he's retiring
He sure
from
did. He
FedEx.
told me to.
He retired from FedEx. So George has been painfully going to work every day, right? And so I asked George the other day, I said, well, George, what do you really, really want to do? Because he's a videographer. And so we've been talking about doing documentaries and stuff. And George said, I want to be on the big stage playing my guitar. And so that is such, no one would know. And a lot of people don't know that George played with some of the greats, right? And so we have so much talent within the community. And just like Shirley, my friend Shirley that passed, Shirley worked for UPS, and she just wanted to be an artist. So if we can somehow nurture the artistry in people, where they're doing their primary love, because I'm a recording artist, and I have been I'm a songwriter singer, and so my poetry is what I really want the world to know about me. And I just was archived in Legler Library, which is the first library built in Chicago. And so that archive of my life is there. And but the most important thing is the young woman that's doing the project. She asked the other day, tell me something about yourself. And I was like, I'm doing too much. I was great. I said first, mother, grandmother, great grandmother, singer, songwriter, artist, jewelry crafter. And I was like, I'm not going to put any narrative to it, because then it'll just be so wordy. I'm just gonna give you who I think I am, and we'll just leave it at that. And so, and I think I'm more my grandmother than anyone, because she was that also. She was a healer. She was a gardener, agriculturalist. She was a seamstress. She was so much. And that's what grandmothers taught you, is that they could do it. And and every New Year's Eve, I don't know why, it amazed me, every New Year's Eve, that she would go in this closet and get this huge accordion and start playing Old Lang Syne. I was like, where the hell?
She could play an accordion. Wow.
She played and you know what? When people purged her house, they got rid of that accordion. I was so sad about that. And I remember it had Mother of Pearl as the keyboard, and she played it exactly. And that was all she played. She would go in there once a year and pull it out. And but what I was fortunate to do was get her seamstress scissors. I got her shears. And so I got them right here on my table. And every now and then I pick up something and I cut with it, so
we're gonna have to Levette, we're gonna have to let Lionel say something. He's got to leave. He's got another event to go to. So Dr. Mangum, he wanted to ask you one question. I'm sorry to cut you off, Levette. You can come right back.
That's okay. That's right.
Okay. I find this quite interesting. I worked at the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for 20 years. And before that, Chicago Housing Authority. And I had a lot of experience with families. Now, the question, first I'll make a statement. There are a lot of theories that this COVID-19, a lot of it is skewed to negatively affect older people. And as you know, Doctor, the family and the extended family, grandma, auntie, that really helped our generation, the baby boomers and the ones right after us. But because the family is designed to integrate the individual into the larger society, to manage tension. And, one of the most fundamental things that families can do is just sit down every day and have dinner. So my question is, as far as the old people are concerned, I think your book is really something that people should read. What do you really think that we can do to strengthen the family and the extended family, to try to bring back some of those relationships? Because it seems to me now, we used to hold court at dinner. Be in here at 6 o'clock. They come out and get you. We're having dinner. You sit down at the dinner table. How was your day? Let me see your report card. What are we going to do this weekend? Family. But now, they send the kids $3 and send them to McDonald's, Burger King to eat all that GMO food. So I'm just interested in another fundamental thing is.
I definitely have an opinion on that. I think
one last thing, and I'm gonna listen.
Okay.
I'm involved with a program that's trying to implement Section 3 of the Housing Act, which is the law that says all the money that comes from HUD is supposed to go to 10%. 10% of it's supposed to go to low-income people. So what I'm trying to do is people that want to work, that want to be entrepreneurs. My organization that I'm executive director of on a team is the National Association of Section 3 Companies. And so, make a long story short, we're trying to identify these people that want to work, want to go after wealth, and want to create a better environment and outcome for their family. Now, our grandmothers and our grandfathers and our parents, and probably true in your family, were farmers. They were businessmen. They had stores. They were the watermelon man. they shoveled the coal. They had the coal truck. So the disconnect from that, you know, and trying to get a lot of our younger people off of the idea. And I trust me, I'm not trying to make myself bigger than anybody or talk down on anybody. But this whole idea that I'm sitting back, I'm getting this check. What happens when they stop giving the check? I'm gonna leave it there.
Okay.
You see, Doc, the reporters come, they come with the real facts.
Yeah.
Help, help.
Yeah. I think it starts, one of the solutions is mentorship. And I think it has to start with the older generation being willing to admit that we aren't still youngsters and being able to age gracefully and allow that grace to be transmitted to the younger generation such that they respect us and are willing to listen to what we have to say. I think, and you know, I'm like you, I'm not trying to be critical of anybody, but when you see people in their 50s and 60s with hair extensions down to the floor,
Yeah,
and getting all of these injections and other, you know, beauty accoutrements, trying to continue to look as they appear to be in their 30s and 40s, then that says to young people that there's nothing to be said for getting old or gaining wisdom.
yeah.
When in fact there really is. And if you're trying to look my age, then what can you tell me?
Yes.
You say that you live the life that I have to live, but you're still trying to live in your past. So how can I learn from you?
See?
If I can allow myself to age gracefully and say to you, I've been where you've been, and this is how you grow. This is how you advance your means in life. This is how you build wealth. This is how you build a business. This is how you get respect from people. Then you'll look at me and say, well, you know what? She's got that gray hair.
Yeah.
But she's earned it. And she didn't just get old, she gained some wisdom with
Come
her.
on now. There you
And
go.
when that happens, then the community will get stronger because we will have people that our youngsters can turn to. And when things get bad, they can say, well, look at Mrs. X, look at Mrs. J. They went this way and they look just fine. As a matter of fact, they prospered through it. So I think
so
if we
good.
can, you know, get our older generation to mentor the younger people and share that knowledge and allow them to tap into it, then we will grow strength. And I'll give you a very brief example. There was an award show, and Megan Good had been, she felt bad because she had dressed one way to present an award to what she thought was going to be a hip hop artist. Then they shifted her over to present an award in a religious category, and she had a dress that was very inappropriate for that. And so on the internet, they made, I guess the trolls, as they call them, made her feel really bad. And she was, you know, busy typing, asking people, what did she do wrong? And this, that, and the other. And the only thing I could think of in my mind is, aren't there any matriarchs in your family that you can talk to so you don't have to go online and you know, try to make, have other people make you feel better rather than air that dirty laundry or air your feelings about what happened? It would be good if there was a matriarch that could say to you, you did nothing wrong. You dressed
Right.
the category that
Absolutely.
they told you you were going to present in. Don't worry about what people online think. Let it go.
Yeah.
Move on. But
Right.
apparently, you know, I'm not saying that she doesn't have matriarchs, but you wonder why she went to the internet for reinforcement or, you
Yes.
know, for
Yes.
appeasement. I just didn't get
Yes.
that.
Where's that auntie that
Yeah.
we could call at any time, you know, because I do remember my aunt, you know, she's in her 70s now. She wasn't that much older than me, but she was my youngest aunt out of 16 out of 16 uncles and aunts that I had. And I remember I went through such a bad situation, and she told me, she says, this is how I handle it. She says, go ahead, wallow all in it. And then a day or two, just leave it alone. Just drop it. Let it just roll off your back. And I listened to that, and it was such a remedy for me. And so that voice of conscience is missing. And as much as I can, that I was thinking as you were talking about Megan Good, I had the opposite that happened to me. I was part of the Grammy, is a Grammy party. And so I'm like, hey, everybody comes dressed in ball gowns. And I came and I put my ball gown on, and they was like, my two daughters was like, please don't wear that. And I said, okay, well, I'll dress down. And I dressed down in a shorter ball gown. And when I got there, everybody was hip hop. I was the only idiot in a ball gown. And then they put me up on a pole. And the next thing I know, everybody was like, get it, Granny, get it. Get it, Granny. And I said, well, you know what? I am who I am. And I said, it's time to enjoy myself. So I didn't think about what I was wearing or anything. Everybody said, have a good time. And so I did. And so anyway, I know that this show is probably going to come to a close in a few minutes, but I would like to say I look forward to you coming again and soon. And because it seems as though you have so many interesting things that you can share with us, and the knowledge of medicine as well.
And we're seniors and we want your help.
All right. Sounds good to me. Well, I certainly enjoyed it.
Oh, great.
And, any feedback you can give me on your thoughts on the book would be great. I welcome that because, I like to know that people enjoyed it. And if there was anything that they have questions about, or if there's anything I can clarify, I would be more than happy to do that.
And she's already,
Brian.
She's already working on the sequel.
Yeah.
Oh.
So.
All right, that's gonna be really interesting.
What people thought about the first one, that'll kind of help me, with the sequel. So.
All right.
I'd like to just share with you also. We had Wanda and I. We had a resident author who was such an eccentric gentleman, and his name was Marcus Nelson.
Yes.
And Marcus Nelson was he was a playwright.
Yes, he was.
And before he passed, he wanted to direct As It Is, which is a book by Macbeth. And he wanted to make it urban. Yeah. And so your book, that's the kind of thing that we need to think about, is how to, engage the children, where we're doing plays and they're asked to read the book and then interpret the book. And, so I do have a theater that I manage. We've been sort of shut down by COVID, but that's what I've done over 25 years, is program the theater and at Garfield Park Gold Dome, and just the love of arts, love of the arts. And so I look forward to talking a little bit more about your book and then about that geriatric piece that we all need, because I have to ask people, where did I leave that cup of coffee?
Stop it.
Why did I walk into this room?
Yes. Hey, listen, I'm going to say this and I'm going to shut up. I was in a meeting and I said to everybody, have a great weekend. It was I said, have a great weekend. They said, Lizette, it's Monday. I said, oh Lord. I said, I've never been that far off. And this guy looked at me and he said, you've been pandemicked. That's sad. I know. That's sad. So good night, everybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We enjoyed that. So you guys gonna have to come back again, okay?
All
Oh,
right.
absolutely.
We enjoyed it.
Let us know.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for
Everybody
everything.
have a
Dr.
great
Mangum.
night.
All right.
Thank you, Wanda.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Ms. Hayes, if you decide that one of these stories might go well for one of your kids or one of your children's plays, let me know, because there's one, I don't know if you've gotten to Lightning Strikes, but tell me what you think about Lightning Strikes.
I will indeed. Thank you so much.
We get that. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right.
All right.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.